Thank you very much for visiting my channel. If not difficult, like and subscribe to my channel to always be aware of events. Thank. Restaurant bosses are warning they will have to charge £100 for a steak if they pass on soaring energy bills to their diners, as an expert says 50,000 businesses are at risk of going bust. Martin Williams, the chief executive of Rare Restaurants, which owns steakhouse chain Gaucho, says small and medium-sized businesses, SMEs, are at risk collapsing due to rising costs. He has called on newly appointed Prime Minister Liz Truss to intervene with a support package to rescue thousands of businesses, along with hundreds of thousands of jobs, from insolvency. Mr. Williams told The Telegraph, "At Rare Restaurants we fixed our energy prices. Had we not, across our 22 restaurants the impact of rising costs would have resulted in a £3.5 million hit on our profitability. To maintain margins this would mean steaks would have to triple in prices to beyond £100. Unless energy prices are addressed, restaurants across the sector will be unable to viably open and many SMEs will sadly collapse." Cuts of beef at the chain's 22 restaurants currently range from £19.50 to £57 depending on size. David Nicholson, owner of the popular Black Rat in Winchester, Hampshire, says energy costs have jumped five-fold from £20,000 a year to a staggering £100,000. The restaurateur. Get in touch by emailing jamie.phillips@mailonline.co.uk. Meanwhile, a former Michelin star restaurant in a wealthy cathedral city is being forced to close due to its own rising energy bills. Who held a Michelin star for more than 10 years before losing it during the pandemic, said spiraling costs are making running restaurants an unviable business. Mr. Nicholson, who opened the restaurant in 2007, said, "The main reason behind its closure is the impact of the increasing energy bills. It's going up from £20,000 to between £80,000 and £100,000. There are also problems with staffing, which includes front of house and chefs. Wages and food prices have gone through the roof. We never set out to make lots of profit. But we certainly didn't want to make a loss. It was becoming an unviable business. The winter won't be a happy time for many. The costs at the Black Rat were the highest across my businesses. Pubs across the UK currently fear having to hike the price of pints to £20 or close altogether this winter." James Alcock, 36, once poured his life savings into the pig.